Oh man, what a great week it was. And we did a really good job keeping away the leaders that hate kids. That was great because we just sent them away. And then we had a boatload of children's workers and youth workers and students that love children and love Jesus come together for a great week. And so it was a good week. So thanks for trusting your kids with us. I think we returned most of them. And so, which is also a good thing by the end of the week. By the way, the Philippines team, they're back. They came back Friday night. Are any of you in the room and awake and conscious? Anybody? Okay, so they are still sleeping. I don't blame them one bit, but we'll hear from them, I'm sure, in the next couple weeks. This past week, I sent a teaser email out. If you don't get the emails, I only send about 50 a week, so you're going to want to get on that list. No, we try not to kill you with too many emails. But by the way, if you don't get those emails, make sure on that communication you give us your email. We could have the wrong email address or have an I instead of an L or something, and so we can fix that. But I teased out and said that I had some really good news, no, great news. And some of you are wondering, what is the big, great news? And no, we do not have a building. That's not one of them. I did not get a Tesla. That's not one of them either. But I've got better news than those put together. And Carol is back after about 7-week glorious, luxurious stay at a hospital. I know. Carol, come on up here. Where are you? Where are you? Come on up here, sweetheart. I am so glad this is the best possible news. And so Carol has been there for a long time. Yeah, give her another hand. It was back in, I think it was December. Judy and I went to see her down there at Good Sam, and Carol, you were as yellow. Your eyes were yellow. You were without energy completely. And since then, what has happened since that day that we saw you?
Well, just to start, the song we just sang, that I am alive because of Jesus, is true. There were many times when my family was called in and they were told that I wouldn't make it through the night. I've had rapid response. I've been in the ICU. I've gone septic several times. The liver ended up dying, half of it. And I'm now living with the transplant, but it's only half, which is working perfectly right now. The antibiotics really tore me up, but I'm here. And I want to thank everybody for the cards and the prayers, and it was really tough on our family, but thank you guys.
So we had tables in the back with cards to you, and one of the nurses made a joke. Here, come stand, make sure you're in the light here so people can see you. Someone, just obey me. And so someone nurse made a joke about you getting those cards. What did you remember? I thought that was funny.
They told me they were going to start charging me rent if I was going to get my mail here. It had been 7 months already, so I'm back and I missed everybody.
So it was an unbelievable deal. 7 months. You would watch the sermons online, and we would mention you and talk about you, and I'd be very careful not to say anything negative about you because it was being recorded. In the midst of that,
it's all right. Your text showed your true self.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. Not only does our family love you, but there were a lot of people that loved you that hadn't even met you yet. I mean, since then, there's a lot of new people that have come and joined our family. What did you learn in 7 months, if anything? I mean, what can you point to? And I don't want you to make it extra spiritual. This doesn't have to be a spiritual answer. It's just, what did you learn? Every time we go through a tough time, we learn something. What did you learn?
From what I was told in the beginning, there was a lot of mental confusion. I don't even remember the beginning. Um, it had to do with the toxins and, like Randy said, all the yellow and everything. And those people are the same people that took care of me after I started to remember things. And nurses and doctors are just wonderful. I mean, you could be so mean to them sometimes. And they love their job. And it's so great to know that. And when I left, the doctors couldn't even give me discharge papers because there were so many of the nurses coming from different floors giving me hugs and interrupting. And it was wonderful. And I know that those nurses are doing God's work. You know, they may not all believe, but they are doing God's work.
Yeah.
And there, at any time, if you're in the hospital, you can request a chaplain. I also learned that you really need to embrace every day. I know it sounds cliche, but you do need to embrace every day. And teach your children about God, because my biggest fear was that, not that I would die, but my biggest fear was that who would raise my son in a Christian way? And now I don't have to worry about that.
You had watched the sermons and you were concerned that the congregation was not responding well to me with my jokes. And so you did something I probably could have used this 25 years ago, but
It was the medication.
was it the medication? Okay. So, so in light of Carol being back and finally having her back a part of our family, would you just tell her how much that you love her? It works. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'm so glad that you're back. Thank you so much. Should actually say laugh, because I don't get that enough. It's our final week and talking about created to connect. If this wasn't the perfect segue to this sermon, I don't know what it would be. When it comes to connecting to God, there's lots of things that are necessary. There's quiet times, and there's having that intimacy or that connection with God at difficult times. And there's, between Jeremy and AJ and myself, we kind of went through the gamut, but we're kind of closing and putting this big old huge bow on top of this series. Because one of the things that we often neglect is the importance of connecting horizontally so we can connect vertically. When my brother and I were kids, our parents would punish us in very different ways. With me, to punish me would be to send me to my room without people. And I had the old school analog version of Facebook. I would stand at my window. I was on the 3rd floor of our home, and I would open up the windows, and anytime someone would go by, I would scream and yell. And so that was old Facebook Twitter way of doing things. And I would have people collecting at the bottom of my, and we would be talking, and my parents would be like, I can't win. And we turn around. Randy's got people around. I loved people. I love people. One of the things that's hard about preparing sermons is I often do it by myself. It's why I go to Jeremy's office and I pull our staff in, is because I like people and I do well. With my brother, it was opposite. When he did something wrong, which was way more often than me anyway, they would send him to his room and he'd go, oh, good. I hate people. And if you know him, please pass that on to him. And it was very different. And so some of you are like my brother. How many of you would rather just go to work and come home and not see anybody? Let me see your pathetic hands. Let me see. Yeah, thank you so much. Both hands up. Thank you for being so honest with us today. How many of you are like me, that the first thing you want to do is run and say hi to someone and see what's going on, and you're like, oh, eventually I have to work? Let me see your hands. You're angels from heaven. So the main question is, so what does it look like to connect with God through connecting with people? Sarah Young once said, self-sufficiency is a myth perpetuated by pride and temporary success. Which is why Carol was missing the church so much. You can only get so much by watching a sermon online. For those that choose to watch great preachers, way better than me and anyone else in the valley, online or on TV or on cable, I get that, but you're getting a sermon. And connecting with others, or your experience in a church family, is not a me thing, it's an us thing. That makes sense? It's not a me thing. It's not about you. And I tell folks so that say to me, and I hear it all the time, first of all, I hear, well, I'm spiritual. And I think, good, you're probably more spiritual than me. What else you got? And they go, number two, I get enough out of that sermon that I hear on the podcast or online or on TV. And I think, how about the others that you're not touching? Is there something to be said for the people that you are touching? And it's a tough conversation. And by the way, I'm preaching to the choir because you're here. It's really easy for me to say that because you got up in the morning and did all the things that you had to do and get dressed and dress your kiddos and feed them and get out the door and get here in time, or for most of you, slightly late. It's not a slam. I'm just making an observation, guys. So if our connection with each other is important, and if our connecting with each other is maybe important is not the right word. If it's essential, then what's that look like? There's 5 reasons we need to connect, and before I do that, let me pray. God, thank you for the opportunity for me to share, which I believe is a message from you. And as I've studied the scriptures regarding this topic, I think that you make a very good argument of why we need to be connecting horizontally with folks. And thank you for an opportunity, the honor it is to open this up. And God, I hope it'll open up conversation at lunch and at dinner and through the day and in the pool as people think and grapple and talk about how important it is to connect with each other so we can connect with you. It's in the name of Jesus I pray, amen. Number 1, the first thing I think you need to know is that we're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be alone. Sin had, if you think about Genesis chapter 2, before sin did what sin did, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, we read this, "Then the Lord said, 'It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him.'" Do you understand that verse and those words that came out of God himself were written and declared before sin happened? If there's nothing that I take away from this sermon today except this point, this will be good for me. My need for others in my life is not because of what sin and the damage it has done. It is because God created me and created you for horizontal relationship. It's not entirely about being married and connecting with that kind of person. There's a lot to be said just for the relationship with others, whether you're single or married. In fact, for those of you that are single right now in the season of your life, and maybe for the rest of, we don't know, how much more it is important for you to reach out and to have that connection horizontally. Luke chapter 10 says Jesus sends out the 72 out in pairs rather than going alone. How much more ground could he have gotten if he had sent those 72 out as singles? I'm not good in math, but instead of twos and ones, it would be, about double. Right? Thank you so much. Send them out in twos. So we're not created to do life alone. In fact, some of you go sideways when left alone. We call that cattywampus where I come from. We have a small group made up of policemen, firemen, former military guys, current military guys. Why? Because they're smart enough to know that without connecting with someone who gets them like we don't, they'll go sideways. Why is it that those lonely times in my life and those moments where discouragement and the cloud just comes over, that there are certain men in my life that get me and get my responsibilities and know what my average day, week, month, or year looks like, that can speak to me at a level that others can't? We're not meant to be alone. And if there's anything that I can tell you, is that it's nothing to be ashamed of, because according to Genesis chapter 2, you were designed that way. That's tweetable. And if I was on my old bedroom on the 3rd floor, that's something that I could declare to the world. And we just feel like we're just being weak. This isn't in my notes, and so I'm just going to kind of throw this out there. And every time I do this, I tend to regret it because, well, I just tend to regret it. So let me just throw it out here. Maybe it's helpful. I had a great conversation with someone probably about 2 months ago. And I said, isn't it interesting that every time we share something from our heart, something that we could be embarrassed about, ashamed of, or every time someone comes to us with something that they've done or not done that they could be embarrassed or ashamed about, do you realize that every single time we share that story with somebody, their response, at least in my life and in their life, 100% of the time is grace and mercy and understanding? Why? What kind of severe pride must we possess to not take those things to somebody horizontally and begin the process of healing and correction? How much? And I think about that old 60s tune, I'm an Island. I don't know, who sang that? Was that Simon Garfunkel? And I think about that song is the antithesis of this sermon. Every time I hear it on the radio, I mean, if I'm in the car with someone old who's listening to that station. So anytime I'm with Dick Gates, that song keeps coming on, and just, old people, that's what they listen to. Yeah, I hear you. I think we're not an island. And how much harder it is for those of you that are single. And God bless you for pursuing people and finding someone to do life with at that level. Number 2, is that clock broken? This isn't good. Number 2, we see ourselves as we really are. Yes, God can search our heart. Let me go through this quickly. Psalm 139, 23, 24. You know it. I love this passage. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. So, God, here I am. My heart is open. My mind is open. And see if there's anything grievous in me and lead me in the way of everlasting life. Search me. And yes, there is a time and there's a place. It's necessary. It has to happen on a regular basis where we're saying, God, tell us. In fact, I love it when we come to God and we hold off little pieces of important information regarding our life as if God doesn't know it. That's the beautiful thing about humans. That we give him everything except everything. And meanwhile, God knows it all completely. He knows our hearts and he knows our mind. Jeremiah 17, I, the Lord, search the heart and test the mind to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruits of his deeds. Any counselors, psychologists, or psychiatrists in the room? Let me see your hands. Okay, several of you. Something called... Am I on? Sorry about that. Totally my fault. Thank you very much. There's something called the Johari window. Let's see it. I think I've got the picture up there. Let me see if it's up there. So you've got the top left, which we call open, and that is known to others and known to self. And so those are the things in my life that everyone who knows me knows, and those are the things that I'm not blind to. We go to the bottom, and there's hidden things. There's some things that are not known to others, but known to me. But if you go to the right at the top, it says these are our blind spots. These are the things that are known to others, but not known to me. And then the bottom right we call unknown, and that is there's some things about us that are not known by me, nor are they known by anybody else. The top right is what I want to talk about just for a second. There are things about you that your family and those closest to you know, and you don't. I said this about a year ago. I think it's funny. I think it's very appropriate. It's worth repeating. Actually had somebody say, I don't have any blind spots. I don't have any of those. And our response was, well, that's why we call them blind. What? He says, well, I don't have any. Okay, you're an idiot. So there are things in our lives that are blind to us. James chapter 1 says, great, you want to add some scripture to this? It's perfect. James chapter 1, verse 23, for if anyone is a hearer of the word and not doer, he is like a man who looks intently in the natural face in a mirror, for he looks at it himself and then he goes away, and at that point he forgets what he saw. Great illustration. I'm sitting in my office, and I had led a campaign at the church prior to this one. We had a church of about 1,500, and we had 1,000 people go through the 40 Days of Purpose campaign. And we had just under 1,000 people in small groups, all through Scottsdale and in Northeast Phoenix. And at the end, we did this campaign dinner, and we had this big bistro lights, and the sun's going down. It was late October. It was perfect temperature, and we had a full meal, and we had a band, and it was just killer. It was a most incredible event. I had a team of people working with me that were so competent that all I had to do is just hint, and they ran with it. They made me look like I was a rock star. So we got all done with this, and the next week we had an elder meeting. I came to the elder meeting, and I was expecting for the elders to go, Randy, way to go, nice job, you killed it, you had 1,000 people, terrific. And what they said to me that day in that meeting, it was kind of talking about staff and evaluating staff and what we could do better. And one of the elders said, you know, it just seems to me that we could have maybe some more variety of age as greeters. That was under me as well. He says, you're well-staffed. We love the number and the stations that you have. It's just maybe you could have a little bit of younger version And I thought we were going to hold a parade for me. I thought we were going to lift me up on the shoulders and have strike up the band and have food and drink. And so I came away just wondering what just happened. I sat in my office. And it was one of those rare times that just the three of us, the top three pastors of the church, were in my office, and we had the doors shut. And I said, guys, I just got to be honest. I don't understand it. I came in after this huge campaign and the success, and all I heard was, maybe you should have more variety. And they looked at each other and thought, and they said to me, they had the courage to say, I think that's reasonable. And then the other one went, I think it's reasonable too. And I went, are you kidding me? They left, and I just sat and I pondered. And then, give me that graph again, please, Joe. And the blind spot came wide open. Who was I doing it for? Why was I doing it? And I said, God, forgive me. And I went back to those guys and I said, you're right. Cancel the parade. I said, it's okay, there is none. Okay, fair enough. And as hard as it was, I went from just kind of cruising to learning a whole new arena about me that I needed to know. And I've said this privately. This is honest truth. That lesson that I learned prepared me for today. And if I had not learned it that day, I'm not sure if God would have given me these responsibilities. And if he had, I would have blown it all to pieces by now. Now, I could still be blowing it to pieces. It just would have happened a lot sooner. Because we all have the blind spots. And we need people who are honest to tell us. Galatians chapter 6, brothers, if anyone is caught in a transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you be tempted too. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Guys, living up in this ivory tower, as we would say, and just having this connection with God, it's not enough, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about, because Genesis chapter 2, the fall took place in chapter what? 3. The declaration that we should not be alone is in chapter 2. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. Number 3, people touch our souls differently than God. I can hit this quickly. Again, this is why God gave man Eve. Maturity happens when we rub shoulders with each other. Proverbs 27, iron sharpens iron, that no man sharpens another. It's the difference between our young adult children caring for each other versus Judy and I. God says, I need you to care for each other. And we have this stage now where our children, 26, 23, and 20, begin caring for each other when our hands are off. And when you hear them talking and texting and taking each other to lunch or dinner to talk. And how heartwarming it is to watch the children caring for each other, and I'm not even in the picture. And God says, this is what I want from you folks. Church, listen to me. He says, sometimes you're going to have to trust each other, and sometimes you're going to have to open up each other and share those issues and those faults and those mistakes. And it's okay, because every single time I've done it, I've got nothing but, that's okay, let's work with it. That's who we are. That's what we need to be as a church. Number 4, there's a sweetness in unity unlike any other. Like-minded, mutual respect, shared cause, simultaneously vulnerable, all in spite of our sin and selfish agendas. And it's the exception, not the rule. I understand that. That's why sometimes churches and sporting group teams and businesses and families, they tend to just kind of work together extra well. You can point to NBA teams that were just stacked with talent and didn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. And you look at others and you're at the third round of the playoffs and you're like, I don't follow the NBA, not much. I do a little, but I don't know any of those starters. Right? You ever had that? And you think to yourself, how did that happen? Because they're trusting each other and sharing. And let me just say this. It's not my job or your job to go around and share our deepest secrets with everyone. I mean, wouldn't it be weird if all of us came to church every Sunday and you're like, hi, my name is Chuck. Can I tell you my deepest hurts and pains and sorrows? And the person go, I don't think, no. Well, Galatians, no. Well, maybe your wife would be interested. I just asked her. She said no. It's finding the right person at the right time, at the right place, who's the right background, who's confidential, who will get you. You know me, most of the time I like to make myself the butt of the jokes, right? And I do that on purpose. I was taught to do that, and it's just kind of how I run through life. And so we kind of all tease, and I tease myself. But I will tell you this about my job and about my position and about what God has provided me that I take very seriously, and it's very humbling, and that is for someone to come into my office or meet me for coffee and they barely know me and they dump everything on the table and they share the deepest secrets, things that I've been told. I have told no one this. And I think to myself, how humbling. But I'm not the only one. You've had it. I've heard some of you say, I'm a Christian, and people at work know that I'm a believer. And they pull me aside and they tell me things that they wouldn't tell anyone else. And I just tell them, I'm going to pray for you. And they have tears in their eyes and they say, you're the only one praying for me. And you walk away and you say to yourself, God is using me at this horizontal relationship in ways that I never dreamt. And you know what God says? It's like a parent of children who are caring for each other. He says, that's how I've designed it. I hope more than anything else that this is more than just a sermon, that you took a couple notes and you thought, oh, it was humorous and it made me laugh and I kind of learned something. No, what I really hope is that somehow the Holy Spirit just got deep in your heart and said, listen, dude, quit being an island. Open up. That's what I hope. And I'm not enough for everybody, and I'm heading to the coast for a couple days, but I'm going to come back, and if you don't have anyone, tell me. I'll be it. Come by my office. The price is right. It's free. And I'll even brew a cup of coffee. Start with me. But quit being an island. Because if we try to connect here when we're not connecting here, it's a dead end. And Jesus says, I've given you good people. And I think of these different small groups and community groups and different groups of people that gather with that kind of openness and prayer and care and share. I love it. And then it opens up a whole new arena. Hey, do this. Do me a favor. You haven't done me a favor for a while, so do this, okay? If this spoke to you, tell me how. Take that white card and just, I don't even care about your name, and just tell me that you heard God tell you ... And as I'm on vacation this week, and as I see that come to me in digital form, there'll be nothing more encouraging, because I want you to know that when Billy and I put together these mornings and all of the other people that are involved, we do this for one reason. We hope that God can do something super positive in your life as he's doing it in ours. This is not a job. This is an honor. Just tell us what God told you. By the way, that last song that the band sang, was that not awesome? Yeah. I'm going to have them come up, but this is what I want. I don't know if you guys can tame, Billy, I don't know if I'm asking, I'm not a musician, if we can kind of tame the music down just a smidge. I want to hear your voices more than anything else. Some of you can't sing. I've sat by you. I know that. But no, I don't care. I want even those of you that can't sing, I want you to blurt it out. And when someone looks at you like you can't sing, I want you to go, that's right.